My name's Tracy Elliott. I'm the president and CEO here at Anti-Cruelty. If you aren't familiar with me, and if we haven't met in person, when this is all over, I very much hope that we can. And we're excited to have every single one of you here. We have a lot of special people. Everybody is special. But we do have groups of people here that we want to recognize. And we're also very excited about this topic. And you're going to hear so much today about our community cares programs, and a little bit today about our aspirations for the future, which are big, and they are in the process of being considered and, if you will, finalized. And there'll be a time not too far in the future when we're going to be able to give you some phenomenal aspirations and more information about our vision coming up. But we really are excited to have you here, and we're excited about this topic. What we're talking about today is the vanguard of the animal welfare movement. The animal welfare movement has a history of changing and adjusting and innovating to deal with the problems as they are, not the problems of the past, but the problems as they are, where they are. This organization has a very long history of innovation and change. We began, as you know, almost 123 years ago next month. To advocate for and provide humane treatment of horses that were used on the streets of Chicago. There was a time when we had a contract with the state of Illinois to work with orphan children. And over time, we have made many additional adjustments and changes to deal with animal welfare problems. And they always are about expanding our vision to a wider and greater desire to help animals. But the thing that has never changed and never will is that we are about preserving the human-animal bond and providing best care for every animal who comes into our care to make this a more humane world and a more humane city. That's what we've always been about. That was Rose Fay Thomas's vision 123 years ago, and that is the vision that we are moving forward with. We are just making changes to the approach we take to deal with the realities of today, and we're excited to talk about that. And community cares is exactly on the vanguard. Now, I want to say this before we get too far into it, and that is this: no matter what you hear, and no matter how excited we are about these new initiatives out in the community, and we are excited about them, I don't ever want anyone to doubt that our commitment to our core work will never change. Nothing new and shiny in the community or anywhere else will ever change the fact that our core work is to save, rehabilitate, and rehome homeless animals, whether that is through a shelter, or whether that is through rehoming, or whether that is through foster, or whatever approach we take to that, that will always be our core. So don't ever take anything that we're saying about our community work to say we are giving up on that core. We never will until there's not a single homeless animal to save. So thank you for joining us. And I want to just recognize some groups that are here today. First of all, our Humane Heroes group is here today. All of you who are Humane Heroes, thank you so much. You are in our leadership circle, who generously support us with an annual gift of at least $2,400 a year. I'm sorry, a year, yes, or $200 a month. And you are the core of our fundraising efforts so that we can continue to serve more and more animals. Thank you for being here. Also joining us are members of the Rose Fay Thomas Society. The Rose Fay Thomas Society, named after our founder, are those who have made the society a part of their legacy with an estate gift, a planned gift. We're part of their estate, and you have identified that up front, and we thank you for that. That has also been a very important part of our growth over the last number of years. We appreciate those of you who are members of the Open Door Sustainers Club who give a monthly gift at any amount. We have so many monthly donors, and it means that we can count on a certain amount of revenue coming in as we budget and we plan. And that's so important for the stability of a not-for-profit organization. So we really appreciate it, whether it's $5 a month, or $500 a month, or $5,000 a month. It is deeply appreciated, and it really helps us to build a stronger, more sustainable organization. I want to also thank our partners and the the funders of this very community cares effort that we're talking about today. The Caris Foundation, PetSmart Charities, and Hills Nutrition, as well as VCA. And many of you are on the webinar. I see Joanne Fuller, and if I'm missing folks, because I can't see everybody, we are very delighted that you're here with us today. And Joanne, just make sure and be careful when you're driving, and we want you to continue to be well. But thank you to all of those funders for helping us build and sustain this community care effort. And lastly, all of the rest of you are volunteers. We so need you and appreciate you. Our donors of any amount, we so need and appreciate you. Partners in other ways, any way that you have helped us to realize our mission and our vision, we are grateful, and we are very happy to have you here today. I want to recognize the mission advancement team who created this event and who keep our story out into the community, so people, our stories, I should say, so people know who we are and what we do and feel good about supporting us. So I want those of you who are on the mission advancement team to wave, and we appreciate your efforts. We have a phenomenal mission advancement team, the best I have ever worked with, and I'm not lying. And I've worked with some really good ones. Before we begin, I'd like to share kind of a brief update about our work right now and how you've helped us to adapt to the truly remarkable times that we've been living in over the last 19, 20 months. I know every single one of you has had your lives disrupted in certain ways. Trying to run an organization in this process was a challenge, but the people who work with me to run this organization from top to bottom, from at every level, are truly remarkable. And we did what we needed to do to continue to care for the animals. And it took a lot of sacrifice for a lot of people, and it was incredibly stressful, and we have done everything possible to support our staff. I know many of you, our board is a remarkable pro-staff board. They have pushed and helped and contributed and done everything possible to support our staff. And those of you who've been coming in as volunteers, we appreciate you so much. We have made it through this crisis, and really never was animal care at risk. We were very concerned that it wouldn't become so. If enough people got sick and couldn't come into work, what would we do? That never happened. We came close in the clinic one time to having to make some adjustments, but it was a very brief period of time when some people were quarantining because they had been exposed. And we've gone through this entire 19-20 month period without a single exposure, or I'm sorry, a single infection from one person to another within our building. Every person who has unfortunately contracted COVID has contracted it outside of our building. And that is because of the remarkable efforts of Lydia Kropinski as head of our COVID safety team and everybody else who worked on the COVID safety team. We've just done a remarkable job. And we kept caring for animals. We kept bringing in animals and saving them and rehabilitating them and rehoming them. We kept helping people in the community with food and other things that they needed for themselves, their families, and their animals. And I think we did a pretty remarkable job, and I'm just going to give you some numbers right now. We placed 4,800 animals last year in homes using mostly a hybrid virtual adoption process that we had to invent from scratch, and we kept changing and adjusting to make it work. We were able to host the Clear the Shelters adoption campaign recently here at River North and at the Everyday Adoption Center and at select PetMart partner locations as well, and that went very well. We recruited during this time 800 new foster families. We could spend the rest of the time talking about how important foster has been and will continue to be, but just know that we got 800 new fosters and placed 1,349 pets into foster homes. I did 2 of those, and I failed at both. So I'm never going to foster again, but I did my part when it was needed. We've always been committed to helping animals in need, and during the past year, we saw humans and their pets needed more help than ever before. So, because our commitment is to make sure families stay together and stay whole, no matter what. So we provided, listen to this, 722,000 pet meals through our pop-up pet food pantry and by working with partners in Chicago's most under-resourced neighborhoods. We have been able to work with leaders like Ninth Ward Alderman Anthony Beal and the Pullman and Roseland neighborhoods, and Alderman Roderick Sawyer from the 6th Ward in the Auburn Gresham neighborhood in order to bring food and resources to those areas. We've coordinated additional efforts with the Metropolitan Family Services, an organization in Auburn Gresham, among other places, the City of Chicago, and the Greater Chicago Food Depository. For these efforts, we recently received the 2021 COVID-19 Game Changer Award in recognition of our pop-up pet food pantry and the support that we gave through the Metropolitan Family Services. I went to that award ceremony and we were the only non-human service organization there, but that's not true because we are a human service organization. It's just that we're helping humans who have families, who have animals as part of their families. And they recognized that and gave us that award. And we're very proud of that, not only for what we did, but for the fact that the community is beginning to realize that this is an important part of providing help and support for families in crisis, for families who are having problems and issues, that the human-animal bond is a tool that can be used to strengthen families and strengthen communities. And the fact that a human service organization, for the first time ever, recognized an animal welfare organization in that way was very gratifying to us. So before we begin, I want to just show you a brief 2-minute video introducing the community care, and then we're going to have a conversation today about our community care efforts with 3 of our amazing staff members who I will have introduce themselves at the end of the video. But let's look at the video right now.
The human-animal bond is a powerful thing. It nurtures, it comforts, and most importantly, it evokes joy. The connection between a person and their pet is something to be celebrated and treasured. That's why the Anti-Cruelty Society is so dedicated to preserving that precious bond. To demonstrate this commitment, in 2021, we launched the Community Care Department to devote additional resources, talent, and time to keep pets and people together. From our field services team, community programs, and pet support services, we have a demonstrated legacy of working with people to help them keep their animal companions.
My dog's name is Rocco. Well, I brought him in so he can get vaccinated. Well, it helps out a lot because, a lot of people don't got this money, and I mean, it's good. There's a good program. So I want to say thank you so much, Anti-Cruelty, for this big help that you're doing, that you're doing for the community. Really helps out a lot. Really appreciate it.
The Community Care Initiative has 3 overarching goals. The first is to preserve families by providing safety nets that keep pets and people together. This includes services like our short-term accommodations for emergencies, or SAFE program. The second focus of the Community Care Initiative is to close service gaps by bringing pet care resources directly to the community. Programs like our dog wellness fairs and pop-up pet pantries remove barriers to services by bringing them straight into the neighborhood. But it's not just about location, it's also about collaboration. What makes these events so special is that the Anti-Cruelty Society works with existing community organizations to complement their efforts. The third and final goal of community care is to cultivate compassion by using a comprehensive, community-based approach. That means listening actively, learning continuously, and adapting our approach as needed. By inviting community members to actively influence the resources we're building, we can help to create communities where pets and people truly thrive together.
Okay, we'll pause a moment for everybody to get their tissue and dry their eyes, because I got a little weepy about that. Thank you so much. That really is a great introduction to where we're headed. So Lydia, Steve, and Sarah, will you introduce yourselves, please? Starting with Lydia.
Yes, hi everyone, and thank you for having me join this special call today. My name is Lydia Krupinski, and I am the Vice President of Mission Impact here at the Anti-Cruelty Society, and I will turn it over to Steve.
Thank you. Likewise, great to be here. Steve Weaver, and I am the Director of Community Impact. And I'll turn it over to Sarah Liss.
Also very, very excited to be here. I'm Sarah Liss. I am the Community Care Program Manager.
Thank you so much. So Lydia, let's get started. Tell us a little bit about our Community Impact Program and how they fit in with all the work that we do here at the Anti-Cruelty Society.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that video because it takes, like you were saying, Tracy, it really gets the waterworks going because it shows you the impact of these programs on people in the community directly. And I love that the images and the content could really portray that for us. So as you heard in that introduction, the human-animal bond is a very, very powerful thing. And it's the legacy that we have carried through many, many decades as an organization. And so we've had humane investigations as a core part of what we do since 1911. So we have a long history of performing those. And then we've had an education department here at Anti-Cruelty since 1937. And through those two programs, we've had a lot of community-based initiatives, things like our pet loss support group for grieving pet parents. We have corporate engagement programs that are hosted here on site at the shelter. We have after-school programming, reading buddies, and so much more. And so we've been inspiring these generations of animal lovers, animal advocates, and then in the field helping animals and families directly for a very, very long time. But that's really the human-centric side of the work that we are doing. And so what makes community care very unique is that we're taking things a step further by actually going directly into these communities and planting ourselves and rooting deeper than we've ever done before. So we're helping pets and people thrive together through this initiative.
That is exciting and inspiring. So tell us exactly what is community care?
So community care, it's this hyper-focused effort that we launched in 2021, something that we had been planning long before the pandemic, but that definitely hastened our response. And we're committed to strengthening communities by celebrating, supporting, and uplifting the human-animal bond. So that's the specific focus for community care. And it's quite extraordinary because it took many, many years of planning and cultivating this very intentional approach so that we could integrate existing services that we already have here at the Anti-Cruelty Society, and doing that while honoring the community's voice. That's why we've been taking a lot of time in sculpting this effort. So there's really a sensitivity behind our approach and intentionality. And so that's really what makes this unique, is we're bringing the legacy that we've had for over 100 years now of helping pets and adding people into the equation so that it's a unified effort that includes community participation. And as you heard in the video, there's really some core tenets to the way that we're doing this work and our goals for community care. The big one is preserving families. We want to keep pets and people together. We know how powerful that human bond is. We want to close service gaps by bringing the pet care resource directly to people, so not having them come to us. You know, River North, we're centrally located. We've got lots of CTA and highways leading to us, but we realize that there's barriers to utilizing the services down here. So we want to come to the people. And then the third layer, which was mentioned in the video, is cultivating compassion by using this community-based approach. So as we've been planning this for many years now and envisioning what does community care look like, how do we do this in a responsible, impactful way, we started to have this organizational pivot in perspective that I think is really, really important to highlight. And this is something that's happening across animal welfare. So it's not just unique to us, but essentially we're going from looking at community members as, you know, when we're looking at the way that field services many, many years ago was structured, or the response of animal rescue agents in the community, what used to be very punitive. This was decades ago, right? We saw people as part of the problem. The pivot and the shift in perspective we're having as individuals, as an organization, and as a field now is that we're recognizing that people are a core part of the solution. We cannot help pets. We cannot help the pet's owners unless we're doing this unified as a group. And so this shift has really allowed us to immediately come together with existing social service agencies, with individual members of the communities to create more holistic approaches towards helping pets and people thrive. So those are kind of the core tenets of community care. And then the four layers that we as a team, as we're looking at the programs we're developing, as we're looking how we shift into these individual communities, we have these four kind of pillars that we use behind the scenes, so a little sneak peek. But we are recognizing that pets are an essential part of the family and the community. That's critically important. Without recognizing that, we go into this work with the wrong mindset, with the wrong perspective. We're also acknowledging that love for a pet transcends socioeconomic boundaries. That is a harder one, I think, for us to swallow in animal welfare. Many, many years ago, when we were doing adoption consultations and screenings, we were specifically looking at socioeconomics as something that made you either worthy or not worthy of having a pet in the home. So we are completely shoving that aside. That's in the past. Moving forward, we are acknowledging that there's a transcendence now, that all people deserve the love and companionship of an animal. And then we're actively seeking ways to collaborate and build bridges with existing community organizations. And then lastly, and I really drive this home with our team that's doing this work, and this was mentioned in the video, we are listening actively. We're not there to impose our view and our perspective. We are open to learning and getting the community's feedback on what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, and we're adapting our approach as needed.
That's great, Lydia. And it is important to understand that this is optimally done when we are partners and listeners more than we are writing into a community to save it. And yeah. I'm so grateful that we have folks, Lydia, Sarah, Steve in particular, because they're in charge of making sure this happens, but really all of us who are putting this together who believe and understand and believe in that approach. It takes longer. It requires humility. It requires open ears and a closed mouth. As my grandpappy used to say, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. I don't always listen to that advice, but we are in this case. So Lydia, give us some examples of how this is impacting the communities where we are engaged.
Yeah, so there's so many ways I can answer this question because we have so many programs, so many services. So I'll take the question in a couple of pieces. So the first one is that one of the shifts, I think, in the last couple of years that we've made is recognizing that we don't want to have transactional relationships with the people that we're working with the pet owners. And so we have made a commitment to provide added depth of service to the communities that we're focusing on. And we have 3 areas currently that we are really pouring additional attention into based on socioeconomic indicators, based on research and data that was provided by the City of Chicago. We are focusing our work in the Greater Roseland neighborhood, which includes Pullman, East Garfield Park, and then North Lawndale. And for those who aren't familiar with it, the city launched a new initiative a couple years ago called the Invest Southwest Initiative. And it's an incredible community improvement project that is being led by the City of Chicago, but is very community driven. And what it's looking to do is strategically reverse decades of systemic public and private disinvestment in a number of neighborhoods. And so we are using the data, we are attending the roundtables that are being hosted by the City of Chicago's corridor leaders in several of these neighborhoods in our 3 focus areas to really learn how the city is engaging and learn how social service organizations are coming together. So that added depth of understanding is something that's new for us within the last couple of years. So that's part of the direct impact that the Community Care Initiative is making on the work that we're doing. And then in a more specific way, so the kinds of programs that are included within the community care umbrella, some of them were touched on the video. We have pop-up pet pantries, which is a food distribution events, dog wellness fairs. This year we're launching cat wellness fairs. So those of you who are feline lovers will appreciate that. We piloted cat and dog wellness fairs together a few years ago. That didn't go so well, as you can imagine. So we paused that, reinvented the wheel, and we're going to be launching those soon. We have an amazing project coming down the pipeline with Chicago Housing Authority and working with some of their family and senior buildings. We're launching the Humane Society of the United States Pets for Life program. And then to complement all of these efforts, we are continuing to perform our field services functions as well as our humane education programs. And really this year, especially focusing our energy into those 3 neighborhoods, again, to add depth to the services that we're providing. Because at the end of the day, it's really about creating relationships between these pet owners and the organization so that there's trust and they know that they can turn to us for help. So a couple of additional numbers to throw at you just to show you what this impact looks like in a year's time. So our SAFE program, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a bit, last year, just in 2021, we placed 123 animals into that emergency boarding program. We also have a monthly pet food subscription program for senior citizens. Last year, we helped 205 seniors who had 361 pets. We helped them feed their pets every single month. So there's some amazing, again, there's so many examples I could go into, but there's just a few.
Well, even though this is really sort of in its infancy, at least in our vision for what we want to do in the future, it's already making a significant impact. But, you know, the numbers are only part of the story. So can you share a bit more about the connections that you've been making in the community that are making this happen?
Yeah, I think that that's such a great question because we can only do so much as an individual organization, right? We would be so limited in the kind of impact we can create. And so could we do this on our own? Yeah, but would it be done to its best ability? No. So we can't function as an island, especially with community work. And so one of the biggest, I think, differences between how we've done this in the past and how we're doing this now is really leaning into those community connections and collaboration. So some great examples of that is when in 2016, we came up with this idea of having dog wellness fairs. We knew we wanted to bring vaccination services directly to the community. We didn't want it to just be a vaccine clinic necessarily because, again, we wanted to build relationships with community members. We wanted it to be a fun, family-friendly event. And so we created the dog wellness fair model, which had, you know, puppet shows for kids as they're waiting for their dogs to get vaccinated, microchipping, so a few layers of services. And so when we were looking for a place to host our first dog wellness fair, we were kind of, where do we go with this? We need to find an organization already embedded in the community that is doing the amazing work of supporting the needs of the community members. And so we were looking around, trying to find a connection. And it was interesting because 2 of us in the community programs department the same week happened upon one organization making 2 contacts unbeknownst to one another. I had been attending an event in the suburbs, and there was a member of this organization called Breakthrough doing a presentation on their impact numbers within the East Garfield Park neighborhood. They were providing a presentation to donors who had seeded some money to get them up and running many, many decades ago. And I heard this presentation, I'm like, this is an interesting organization. They have a food pantry for people, a domestic violence shelter for women and children. They have a shelter for men who are looking for housing. They have an entire education facility, preschool, athletic center. They partner with Christian North Lawndale Christian Health Center. I mean, they were just like, wow, like this place has all these amazing services for people. I wonder if we can get involved. And so I made a connection that day with a woman who was presenting. And just a few days later, our community programs manager, Elliot Serrano, was at an education and training event, and he met another member of their team. So it was this amazing moment where all paths led to Breakthrough suddenly, an organization that we hadn't been familiar with previously. And so within a few weeks, we started talking to their leadership. We got some dates on the book for the following year. In spring of 2017, we launched the new dog wellness fair model because of that collaboration and because of that support. So that's one of my favorite stories. And we've done more than dog wellness fairs with them since. We work with their preschool to provide our pet care and safety programs, which teach kids how to be safe around pets. And to develop empathy and socio-emotional learning for them. And then last year, I was a little delayed because of the pandemic, but we also launched our Canine for Kindness Academy, which is a community dog training program directly at the complex. So it's just, again, it's amazing how that connection and that collaboration can make such a big difference. And we've had this collaboration going and we look forward to it growing.
Well, wellness fairs, the dog wellness fairs have helped hundreds, if not thousands of families and since their launch, and they're a great approach. And Dr. Shelley Rubin who's with us, a retired veterinarian, he's been on our board for many years. He volunteers for those, and it's so great to have a board member come and share his expertise, and we really appreciate that. And those are just great events. But tell us a little bit more about the pop-up pet food pantry that is sort of the most recent thing that has developed in terms of our help with the community.
Yeah, I would love to talk about this. So it's speaking to the idea of listening to the community's needs and being flexible and adaptive, not an easy thing to do for a big organization and where that requires lots of planning, right, to launch these programs. So I love the pop-up pet food pantry story, and I actually have Steve with us here to tell us a little bit more about it. So before Steve hops on, just to provide some context. So when the pandemic hit in March of 2020, we already had our Friends Who Care program established. That's the direct delivery program for senior citizens with pets who need our support. So we had that program up and running, and we saw that with the pandemic, people were losing their jobs, they were being furloughed, and we had this fear, oh my goodness, what's going to happen with all these people's pets? Where are they going to go if they don't have money to feed themselves? If they don't have money to feed their pets, they're going to start bringing them to the shelter. We want to preserve the human-animal bond. So what can we do? So thanks to amazing support from our sponsors, our funders, we're able to temporarily expand the Friends Who Care program to anyone in need. And within a few weeks' time, Steve's team was able to provide pet food kits to over 3,000 people in the area to make sure that they had something to feed their animals while the initial effects of the pandemic were being watched and responded to. And that equaled, those 3,000 plus households equaled 5,028 pets receiving care packages directly from the Anti-Cruelty Society. So we started there. We realized that may not be a very sustainable model to keep that going. And so the community care team, headed by Steve, came up with a different approach. And so he'll share a little bit more about that.
Yes, thank you. And we were looking to focus the need in specific target areas. So we already knew that East Garfield Park, we're working with Breakthrough, that was one area. But we were looking for another neighborhood and to partner with. And I looked at UIC's community hardship index just to give a focus of what neighborhood would be in greatest need. And Riverdale and West Pullman were high on that list. And so I reached out to the alderman of that area, Alderman Beal's office in the 9th Ward, and they just jumped on it. They responded right away. They had a human food distribution event in a parking lot, a dollar store parking lot that they had started up. That effort was led by Metropolitan Family Services, and they were distributing food from Greater Chicago Food Depository. So we just added pet food to the distribution and to their efforts. And we did it, and we weren't quite sure what the response was be, but we heard very quickly back from the Alderman's office and from Metropolitan Family Services that, people were calling them saying, hey, when are those pet food people coming back? And also stories just of how great the need was, that families were, in some cases, prioritizing their pets over their human food. So it was a real need in the neighborhood.
Thank you, Steve. Hey, Lydia, let's skip forward just a little bit because we're a little bit short on time. Why don't you real quickly describe what the SAFE program is, and then have Sarah tell us a little bit about the impact that it's having.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that one up. It's near and dear to my heart. So the SAFE program is one of our many safety net services that we provide to the community. As you've been hearing us talking about our commitment to keeping pets and people together. This is a program that launched in 2008, specifically to provide emergency boarding services for individuals who find themselves, for instance, they have a loss of housing due to a house fire, or perhaps they're in a domestic violence situation and they need to flee, and they of course don't want to leave their pets behind. So we launched this program in 2008 to provide that temporary boarding, free wellness package, health support to individuals who find themselves in that situation. And since launching the program, we've helped 576 animals through SAFE. So Sarah Liss, who is with us, our community care manager, can share a little bit more about the program and the impact it's having.
Thank you, Lydia. So, you can imagine SAFE clients come from all different walks of life, and you hear those different kinds of emergencies that they may be enduring, but they all are prioritizing preserving that bond that they have with their pet. And so the program has seen, thankfully, many happy endings of clients overcoming immense hardships and, then being reunited with their beloved pets. So one of my favorite stories since taking on management of the SAFE program was a mom and young son who had recently lost their housing due to eviction. Mom was speaking with the principal at her son's school about the issues they were experiencing, and she referred them to the SAFE program. Their two cats, Simba and Paprika, were in the program for just over a month, and with much of that time actually being spent in a foster home, which is an even more wonderful layer than it already is. And joining the SAFE program also meant that Simba was able to be neutered before returning home, free of cost to his family. So mom and son missed their cats so much during that time, but finding a new home was made just a little bit easier because they at least knew that their cats were safe and well cared for.
Yeah, if every single person on this call knows what I mean when I say, can you imagine the devastation of being in an economic situation or a domestic violence situation or whatever, and having to surrender your pet during the worst, perhaps the worst time in your life when you need that love the most. So I love this program because it preserves that bond, and there are so many great stories about that we could go on, but it's really a wonderful thing that we're able to do, and I'm super excited about it. And I know we can't do this work on our own, any of the community cares work. So I'm stealing this from Lydia so we can move forward. We do depend on sponsors such as Hill's Pet Nutrition. Thank you so much, Allison, PetSmart Charities, and Caris Foundation, and lots of private donors. This costs money, and none of it is accomplished without that generosity. Joanne Fuller is here from PetSmart, so we're so appreciative of all of your efforts. I'm sorry, from Hills. And our community partners, Alderman Beal, Greater Chicago Food Depository, Breakthrough, Urban Ministries, Chicago Police, and Chicago Park District, Chicago Housing Authority, and Metropolitan Family Services. Appreciate all of you so much. And we can't do this work without all of you as well. Whatever you've contributed in any amount, dollar-wise, volunteer-wise, or any other way. All of this requires all of us to get this done. So thank you so much about that. And for those of you who are here, like Allison and Joanne and others from our funding organizations, you have a lot to do. We really appreciate that you're with us today, and we can thank you personally because we're really grateful. And your generosity and your organization's generosity have done a lot of good in Chicago, and we appreciate that. So Lydia, what are your plans going forward in 2022? I know what they are, so I could say it myself, and I'm so excited about it, but let everybody else know.
Yeah, so the saying, right, make no little plans. We have some amazing things coming down the pipeline. So we're expanding current programs. I see there's a question in the chat regarding that. So we're always looking for more communities that we can be supporting and how to, again, go deeper with the programs we already offer. A few things to touch on, and then I know we're running short on time. We are, as I mentioned earlier, going to be working with the Humane Society of the United States to bring the Pets for Life program through the Anti-Cruelty Society to Chicagoans in those 3 focus neighborhoods. They've had a presence in Chicago for about 10 years now, but we're going to be they're passing the torch to us now to keep this program going. So we're honored and very excited to be doing that. We are in talks with the Chicago Housing Authority. We actually, I think, have another call tomorrow with them to bring some service and support programs directly to residents who have pets living in those spaces. And then we're looking at expanding our open door housing campaign. That's something we've had going for a number of years, and that's an effort to foster positive relationships between tenants and property owners so that we can expand pet-friendly housing availability in the city, because we know that that's a huge barrier for people adopting and keeping their pets. So those are some of the big projects I have on my plate and my team has on their plates. But Tracy, you have a project that's very community specific that you are leading. So I'm going to turn the tables a little bit and have you talk about our community impact pilot.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to talk about it, and I promise that I'll be brief so we will have at least 10 minutes, if not more, for questions. So please start thinking about your questions. We're going to give you time. So for a number of reasons that have converged all at the same time, there's kind of a crisis down in the southern part of our city and in the deep south suburbs where they do not have animal control facilities and officers. Basically, there are too many stray animals in those communities and not enough capacity, sheltering capacity down there to house them. So some bad things are happening to stray animals, stray dogs. I don't want to be depressing, but when there's no place for a small municipality or a neighborhood who finds a stray dog to take them, sometimes the outcome is not good. And we want to ensure that the outcomes are good for every possible animal in the city. And this crisis has been brewing since before I arrived. David Dinger, when he was our chief operations officer, been here 38 years, described it to me when I first got here. And I had a gut feeling that someday this was going to end up on our plate for all kinds of reasons. We have the scope, we have the resources, we have the talent to do this, but we were hoping it would be part of our bigger plan that we are finalizing over the next several months. But the crisis has gotten too bad, and it's really affecting some of our partner agencies, and a lot of animals are suffering. So we decided we had to take the bull by the horn and go with it. And so went to my board, asked for permission to do this. They unanimously agreed. It's going to cost us quite a bit of money, but we are going to establish a temporary emergency receiving shelter in the Roseland Pullman community. We're going to be renting a building, outfitting it as a temporary shelter for at least 3 years. And by that time, I hope we have a more permanent solution. But those municipalities can bring us stray animals where there's nowhere else to take them. And we will take them in. We will of course hold them for their owners to come and reclaim them. That's what we want to happen, because they're generally lost after a 7-day stray hold. And we will care for them. If they need care, we'll provide it or rehabilitation. But then this is a partnership with 4 other organizations. And also the whole coalition that we're part of, the Chicago Humane Coalition, is going to be participating as well. We'll get those animals then out into adoption facilities to find them new homes if we haven't been able to reunite them with their owners, so that there is a place for those animals to go that is safe, they'll be cared for, and then they'll be rehomed. It's a big project. We went down yesterday and looked at facilities. It's hard to find the right kind of facility, but we're going to do it. PetSmart Charities came right on board right off the bat as our first funder. We have other funding opportunities that are coming. The whole project's going to be about $5 million. We will also be getting some reclaim fees and things like that, but our board and our staff said, this is our responsibility. I just feel like we have to do this. This is our job as the largest, most comprehensive animal welfare organization in the entire region. Somebody has to step up to the plate, and that's what we're going to do. The nice thing about it is it puts us in that neighborhood where we want to be permanently anyway. And we've already talked to neighborhood representatives, and they're very excited about it. We've got the full support of the Greater Roseland Chamber of Commerce, the Alderman's office, and Metropolitan Family Services. And so this is exciting. We'll give you a lot more details. We hope to be up and running in 6 to 8 months, if not before. And then we'll run that shelter for 3 years or until a more permanent solution can be found. So that's something that's happening right now that we're super excited about. And it's an example of us stepping up to the plate and doing our job, which is to save more animals and to do what we can to help communities stay safe. So, all right, questions. Gosh, we're even a little early now. Any questions?
Yeah, we do have a few questions. I'm just going to tee them up. If you have more questions and want to add them into the chat, that would be great. The first question is from Joanne Fuller from Hills Pet Nutrition. Understanding that access to subsidized veterinary care is such a critical need in making sure pet families can stay together, can someone speak about the shortage of veterinarians and veterinarian healthcare team members we've been all hearing about and how it's impacting our plans to provide more access to care.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Well, I'll take that on to start with, and anybody else can. And Joanne, I'm sorry for employing you at PetSmart Charities for about 5 seconds. I know better. They'd love to. I'm sure they'd love to have you, but you're with Hills, and Joanne's a great partner. The vet shortage. Wow, that is a hot topic in the entire field all over the country. It's really simple. The animal industry, if you will, is exploding. More and more and more people are bringing animals into their homes, whether they're getting them from breeders or from shelters or where else, and they need vet care, and there aren't enough vets. It's that simple. There just aren't enough vets for the demand. That really is a danger to us because we can't operate. We can't do our job without adequate vet staff. And so we're all suffering. We're all experiencing it. We talk about it all the time in the field, in the coalition. What I did here was put together a vet recruitment task force that included board members and staff members to try to figure out how we could become an attractive place for vets to want to work. And I can tell you that it worked because I think I can announce right now that we are fully staffed in our vet staff. They're not all started yet, but we have employment commitments to have every one of our positions, both a vacancy in our clinic staff and 3 new positions that are now filled. But we're really lucky to have the resources to be able to do that. Other smaller shelters are finding it very difficult because the price of veterinary care to the public is going way up, but also what vets can demand for their work. I've always felt vets were underpaid for the kind of schooling that they have and the kind of responsibilities. Always felt that way. I couldn't believe when I found out what vets were paid. Well, that's changing. They're getting paid a lot more, and they should be getting paid a lot more. But of course, it's a challenge to our industry. So what we did is we put together a coalition of 3 agencies that are us and 2 others that all are struggling. And we are experimenting with a new model. And that model is for agencies to get together, shelters to get together and jointly hire vets to serve both the large and the small organizations. In this particular case, that vet who has been hired is going to work for us, going to be on our payroll, but is also going to be serving 2 other humane societies in the Chicago area. They will be paying us for those services. Eventually, we'd like to greatly expand that. And we think this is a way that small shelters can increase their economic power to be able to afford veterinary care. And as a large shelter with lots of, talent and resources, we feel it's our responsibility to try to solve that problem. So we are experimenting right now with this hub idea. And there's only 1 vet so far, and she hasn't even started because she hasn't even graduated from vet school, but we already have her. And then one of our brilliant community vets is going to be supervising her as she goes around and serves other agencies. So we're experimenting. We are open to new ideas. And we are also recognizing the reality that vets deserve to be paid more. They're asking for more, and we are paying them more. But this is a problem that's not going to go away. We have to keep working at it, and we have to be really innovative about it.
Great. Thank you, Tracy. Here's one for Lydia. It's from Barb McLucas. How often are we doing the pet food pantries, and have we added different communities and neighborhoods?
Yeah, and Steve, you're welcome to jump in on this one too, but we have been doing the pantries every single month. One of our commitments, and we didn't talk about this earlier, but I want to articulate it. One of our commitments with all of our community care programs is once we launch a program for either a certain demographic or a certain community, right? Whether it's Friends Who Care for Senior Citizens, pop-up pet pantries for the Roseland community, which is where we're doing the monthly, we keep that going. We do not want to be an organization that comes in, provides services for a period of time, and then backs out, leaving people hanging. So that's a commitment that we've had since day 1 of launching any of these services. So I haven't mentioned that. I wanted to put that out there. With that in mind, we want to be very judicious on where we expand and how we expand to make sure that we can continue keeping that commitment. So I foresee that with the launch of the Pets for Life initiative, we are going to have an increase in food supplementation support for a lot of pet owners. We're going to be doing that very methodically and very strategically. And so the pop-up pet pantries are a fantastic model for kind of casting our net wide. And again, servicing one specific community regularly so they know they can count on us. But I think the next step for us is going to be to do those more deep reach relationship building exercises through Pets for Life, through the CHA project with Chicago Housing Authority and a few others. But I can have Steve jump in too. I don't think we're opposed to doing more of the pop-up pet pantries as the communities need them. So again, we're really staying in tune to what the community is directing us to do rather than assuming that they need a specific service.
This is probably a good time to mention something that I think is really fundamental in the change that is going on. And sometimes you have to talk to folks about this, and it's kind of hard to understand, but it's really important. Everybody loves big numbers. In other words, we like broad impact. I love it too. I love to be able to say we help 10,000 animals or whatever. But in this kind of community work, you also have to be looking at the depth of impact. And I had a donor in my previous shelter who wanted us to serve X number of animals in the community, and he'd give us the money for it. And the number was really huge. And I said to him, we could buy that many collars and go out and distribute all of these collars to animal owners that don't have them, and then say we serve 10,000 animals, but we didn't have any impact on their lives, really. So I would rather serve 1,000 families and make sure that we are preserving those families and making them whole than serve 10,000 families and not have a long-term impact. That's the difference. There are areas where broad impact is still important, right? We want thousands of adoptions. We want thousands of spay neuters. But in this case, thousands may not be the target. I mean, hopefully we'll get to thousands, but we want to make sure that we are doing it right and we're doing it for the long-term impact of the health of that family and that dog and cat and pet and that community. And sometimes that means depth rather than breadth. So we may not be expanding to lots more communities because we have so much work to do to lock down the communities we're in. I hope that makes sense to everybody.
Great. All right, next question. This one's from Danny, and she's saying, can you describe some of the ways you've had to modify your work as a result of the pandemic? Lydia, I think that one's yours.
Ooh, oh man, the pandemic. Oh, we had so many high hopes and dreams in January of 2020. And then a few months later, we know what happened. So I have to give full credit to my team and to the entire Anti-Cruelty Society team, because I think of everything, the last 2 years has been an exercise in being adaptive, right? Every single time a new surge came, a new policy from public health officials came, we were constantly shifting. So yeah, it's been an intense couple of years, but I can describe three just quickly ways that we adapted. For the SAFE program, the one where we're temporarily housing animals, in the beginning of the pandemic, we anticipated a wave of requests for that program. We didn't know how many people are going to be hospitalized, leaving their pets at home. That's one of the emergency scenarios the program supports. So what we did, which was a shift from what we had done before with the program, is we started recruiting foster homes with great intensity. And that's part of how we got to that 800 number. We sent out a huge community call saying, the pandemic has hit, people are going to be sick. They don't want to leave their pets at home, by themselves. Obviously, they need a place for them to go. And so we expanded the foster program to absorb those animals. So that was one way that we adapted. We also, Steve talked about the pop-up pet pantries. I think that's a fantastic example of how we shifted at a moment's notice from, Friends Who Care providing help to several hundred families to several thousands, then looking at that and saying, okay, we helped put a Band-Aid on this, but how do we go a little bit deeper? How do we serve the people who need the most help? We should go into the community and do face-to-face direct distribution, outdoors with safety, PPE equipment to make sure that our teams are safe, that the clients are safe, and just having that quick pivot. And then I think the third big one for us which took some time to plan out, is our wellness fairs. These are events where we had upwards of 150, 200 people showing up. Obviously, you can't have that many people in close quarters during a pandemic. And so we had to scale down the number of pets and people that we were servicing at those events. But then to compensate, we had to expand the volume of the events, right? So fewer people at the events, but doing the events more frequently. So again, all credit goes to the community care team, to Steve, to Sarah, to the support staff, because every month I feel like we were having to adapt and change the way that we were processing and facilitating these programs.
Great, thank you. Next question. Sorry, wrong one. This one's from Bev. Are there any plans or consideration being given to buying the building next door to the shelter?
Bev, you and I have the same fantasy. 10 years going. For those who don't know, we had a Gino's East, which used to be, another restaurant, which used to be another restaurant. So it's one of those cursed real estate spaces that can't seem to hold. I do not think that there are any immediate plans to buy that space, no, but I will fantasize about pizza and cats in a cat cafe to the end of my days. So.
Right. Yeah. Yes, that's good. Tracy, Barbara Provost is asking, why do you see the temporary shelter, emergency shelter, as only being necessary for a few years?
Well, that's a good question, Barbara, and I don't think it will be necessary for a few years. I think with what's going on in that community, it's going to be necessary permanently. We just don't have the permanent solution devised yet. And of course, Barbara, as a board member, you're going to be part of making that decision about what the permanent solution is, so to speak. But because we're in the middle of our planning process and we really don't have, we intend to complete that process in August of this year. I didn't want to wait that long before we did something. So we are going to be needed in that community permanently. We don't know exactly how, with whom, and so forth. So this is simply to get us started towards solution. But there are some other considerations with other organizations and what they do that it's going to also affect what we do if other organizations are going to step up and do more. And we're in talks with most of those organizations too. But we'll be there. We'll be there permanently, I'm sure, in some role.
Thank you. And our final question, also from Barbara, which is a very appropriate question for the last 30 seconds. Tracy, that was 30 seconds that you have, is how can everybody help support some of these community initiatives? It's a good way to end our session today. Right.
Well, we have a little phrase here that we talk about, which is champion, connect, and invest. And those are three ways you can help. Choose one or do all three. Champion means you learn about our programs, which you've just done today, and you go and talk to your friends about it. If people ask you, even if people don't ask you, have people over when you can for wine and say, I'm going to tell you about something. Champion our cause. Be our cheerleaders. Go out and tell people about what we're doing and how great we are and all the stuff we're doing. Champion. Connect us with other people who care as much about animal welfare and animals as you do, and get them involved, whether they are also champions or whether they're volunteers or whether they're donors. However, we need you to connect us to other people. And then finally, and I have to say it's my job, and since I have board members here, and if I don't say it, I'll get in trouble, invest. We need money. We always need money to make these programs go and to grow. We have an amazing donor base, but we also have really big plans. And so we're going to need a lot more money than we have now. So Rhett and Jennifer, they know what I'm talking about. There's already sweating blood. But whatever you can afford to invest with us, it is appreciated and needed. We have literally tens of thousands of donors every year who give us $1. We get envelopes in the mail with $1 bill. Is that right, Jennifer and Rhett? We do. Envelopes in the mail with $1, or sometimes 5 or 10. We love that. We also like it if you add some zeros onto those. We like that too. So anything you can do to help us champion, connect, and invest is appreciated.
Great. Thank you, Tracy.
I do want to say one thing before I leave. I'm sorry to go over, but I did look at page number 2 and noticed how many people from PetSmart Charities are here. Oh my gosh, thank you all so much. Kim and, oh, where'd you go? Andrew and who else? I'm seeing so many. We really appreciate you being here with us today, as we do Hills and anybody else who's with us. But I wanted to recognize how many people. We have two
Thank
people
you.
at least from Hills and from PetSmart Charity. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, we couldn't do this without all of you and all of your support. We appreciate you being here with us today. We're looking for our next behind the scenes webinar in June. So we will be sharing information, and we will be sharing this this recording. So if you want to share it with your friends, that would be wonderful. So thank you again for your time, and have a good day.
Thanks.